Hey, y'all. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Unfeigned the podcast. As you know, this podcast has been my story. It's been my unmasked story, my rewritten story, and it's been this 9-year journey of healing. And I've experienced redemption and restoration, healing, growth, maturity, not only in my individual life, my personal life, but also in my relationships. And for the majority of this podcast, I've been telling my story. And from time to time, I'm sharing the lessons that I've learned along the way. And it all relates to my story. But what I want to do is I want to start a series. And over the next several episodes, I'm going to do a series on healing from brokenness. So going from brokenness to healing. And yes, it'll still relate to my story, and much of it will be about my story. But I want to offer more of some of the lessons that I've learned, some of the practical steps that can be taken to experience healing, and so I'm excited about this because it's going to be more intentional. And yes, I will be sharing my story. This podcast is my story, but it'll be much more than just sharing lessons that I've learned. It'll be a lot more intentional and purposeful, and I'm excited about that. So, y'all, I hope that you will stay with me on this journey. Right now, I'm planning about the next 8 podcasts, or the next 8 episodes will be this series, from brokenness to healing. It could be less, could be more, but hopefully you'll join me. I appreciate y'all so much. I love that you listen to this podcast. I love engaging with y'all. I love connecting with y'all. Remember, email me at unfeignedpodcast@gmail.com. Send me a message on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. And I do want to reiterate this announcement that I made on a previous episode. For every month, at the end of every month, so the last Friday of every month, I'm going to dedicate that episode to answering y'all's questions. So it's going to be sort of like a live Q&A episode. And eventually the vision is to do it actually live, where I'll have people email in or call in or whatever, and we'll do it that way. But at this point, I would love for y'all to submit your questions, whatever advice you're looking for. And then the last Friday of every month, I'm going to dedicate the episode to just diving into your questions. And what's so cool about this is, if I have a question, I might find answers that I'm looking for, but those that are listening, other folks that might be listening who may be going through or feeling or thinking or whatever, experiencing the same things that you are, will now be able to get some help and get some answers to their questions, even if they didn't submit, they weren't the ones that submitted the question or asked for the advice. So this is so cool. I'm super excited about it. I've been getting some questions already, and so the first one we're going to do is the last Friday of this month, and I'm just excited about it. So definitely tune in and hear what questions are being asked, what we're going to dive into. I do want to say that each month, throughout every single month, throughout the entirety of the whole month, you can submit questions at any point, and you can ask for advice at any point, at any time. I've created a website. It's www.unfeigned.org. www.unfeigned.org. Go to that website. You can obviously check out whatever's on there, but there is a link at the top to go to the live Q&A page. That will bring you to a page on our site where there's a form that you can fill out to submit your question. It's completely anonymous. You don't have to put your name. You don't have to put any information that pertains to you. No email, no phone number, anything like that. There's no real way for me to identify who you are. And that's that's purposefully done. And so it's completely anonymous. All you do is submit your question or whatever advice you're looking for. And then that's what we'll go to when we do these episodes, the last Friday of every month. Okay, so let's dive in. let's begin this series going from brokenness to healing. And there are three main mantras, the three main pillars, the three main statements that make up the foundation of my story, of my healing. And I've mentioned them quite often, quite a bit on this podcast, but I want to reiterate them again. I want to let you know them again, because this series, the next several episodes, these are going to be woven throughout all of it, right? And so the first one is, whatever you give your attention to, you will become attracted to. Whatever you become attracted to, you will pursue. That's the first one. I don't know if this is in order of importance, but that is a major one. The second one is choose, commit, confront. And then the third one is be curious, not judgmental. So those three mantras are the three mantras that I try to live by every day, every moment of my life. They are woven, they're a part of every part of my story. And they've been key to my healing and my growth over the last 9 years. So let's start with this first episode in this series of going from brokenness to healing. So, we can feel shattered by life, right? And I've said it before on the podcast, like life will always life, right? Life is always lifing, and we can feel shattered by that, right? By loss, by betrayal, maybe even just by our own choices. We're going to talk openly in this series. We're going to talk openly, and we're going to be vulnerable and transparent about what brokenness looks like, how to identify its roots, and how to begin walking the path to healing with grace, honesty, and faith. So let me repeat that, because that's going to be important. We're going to talk openly about a couple things. One, what brokenness looks like. Two, how to identify its roots. And then three, how to begin walking the path to healing, how to begin walking in your healing with grace, honesty, and faith. Okay, so what is brokenness? Right? That phrase is thrown around a lot. I say it a lot. Many people say it a lot. It's a thing, right? When we say we're broken or our brokenness isn't just about being hurt, right? I don't know. Maybe this pertains to this, or maybe it doesn't, but it just came to my mind. I always say, so I train athletes, and I say this a lot, that there's a difference between being hurt and being injured. So maybe that was just a random thought, but brokenness isn't just about being hurt. It's literally about being fractured at your core, right? Brokenness isn't just about being hurt or feeling hurt or getting our feelings hurt, right? It's about being fractured at our core, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, right? And it shows up in different ways. So when we see people we've all noticed people that we can tell by the way that they look, by their countenance, that something's going on, right? That they're going through something, or something's off. Like, maybe when it's in their smile, and their smile doesn't quite reach the eyes, right? Like, it's just kind of like a half smile or whatever. Maybe it's in how they respond to certain things. And this is a very common thing to guard your heart, right? Maybe it's in the walls that we have put up around our heart to guard and protect ourselves. The catch-22 is it doesn't allow us to feel those things either. Maybe it's shows up in a life that just feels numb, right? Instead of alive. You're just going through the motions, and you're just getting by. You're just dealing, right? But there's no life in it, and it's not alive, right? There's a verse that comes to mind in Psalm 34:18. It says, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit." God doesn't run from our brokenness. I've said this before on previous episodes, that he's not over there somewhere off to the side, and we're dealing with our stuff, and we're going through our brokenness, and it's the weight is so heavy, and he's just kind of waiting for us to get through it, and then he's there. That's not how it works. He's in it with us. He's in it with us, right there In the worst of it, he's there with us. And he doesn't run from our brokenness. I used to, it's funny because I used to wonder at my darkest moment, I used to wonder if there was actually something that was too far for God to reach. If there was something that was just too far out of the reach of God. I know that's not true. I know no one can be too broken for God. We cannot be too broken. Our brokenness can never be and will never be too messy for God. And I know that I think I was just kind of wallowing on my own self-pity, right? And I was depressed and it was dark. It was just in a dark place. And I felt like maybe God left me alone, or maybe I was just too far out of his reach. Now I know that's not true, but God doesn't run from our brokenness. He's in it with us. He's close to us in the midst of it. He's there with us. And I want us to remember this truth. Brokenness doesn't disqualify you from healing. It invites divine attention. Okay, feel that for a second. Brokenness doesn't disqualify you from healing. It invites divine attention. Sometimes we think that we're too broken, that we're just too far gone. That's a very common phrase. And sometimes we think that we're too far gone and that our brokenness, us being too far gone, quote unquote, will not allow us to heal. That for some reason we're just too broken or too messed up or too far gone that we can't heal. That will always be that way. That in some strange way we're disqualified from being able to heal. But instead, it invites divine attention. God draws near to the brokenhearted. And oftentimes you find that at your worst moments is when you rely on your faith. At your worst and darkest moments, oftentimes is when you feel the hand of God. Because you have nothing left. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing else you can do. And it's funny because in the Christian faith, there's this theme that kind of says, that's exactly where God wants you, right? Because then you cannot rely on yourself, that you have to lean into him and lean on your faith. So what causes our brokenness? What causes our brokenness, right? Sometimes we break because of life, right? Life's, and it hits us hard, and sometimes we break because of life, right? Much of my story involves, all of my story, all of this podcast has stemmed from my divorce, right? And that's something about life that breaks us, that can break us. This podcast is basically started from the divorce, right? Our brokenness can come from the death of a loved one, childhood trauma, rejection, abandonment, right? Sometimes we break because of our own decisions, our addictions, these addictions that we think we have under control or that we thought we had under control, but yet we stay a slave to them, right? Maybe it's a relationship we should not have stayed in. Maybe it's a lie that we believe about our self-worth. We believe our inner critic as it lies to us about who we really are. Sometimes we inherit brokenness. We carry family patterns, right? There's generational curses. You hear that a lot, right? And so we carry these patterns, these family patterns that taught us that dysfunction was normal. And sometimes we inherit that brokenness. Identifying the source of your brokenness is the first step toward healing. So identifying where this brokenness is coming from. What's the source, right? And on previous episodes, I actually talked about the root, getting to the root cause, right? And when we identify the root cause, when we identify the source, we can begin to heal, right? So a couple things that I would ask and that y'all should ask yourselves is, where does this pain come from? So when we're broken, we feel things. In our brokenness, we can identify certain things we feel, certain ways we feel about certain things that cause us pain or stress or depression or frustration. And we can identify these things. So where does the pain come from? Another question to ask is, what am I trying to protect or avoid? Right? A lot of times we guard our heart because we're trying to avoid being hurt. Right? Or maybe we're trying to protect ourselves and we don't want to be embarrassed. And so we don't do the thing we really want to do. Another question is, what lie did I start to believe in my brokenness? I've mentioned this on previous episodes about our inner critic. In our brokenness, our inner critic starts to get real loud. Our inner critic's voice becomes earth-shakingly loud in our brokenness. Much of it isn't true. Much of it involves lies about who we are or what we're capable of, or about our past or our present or our future. And so what lie did I start to believe? What lies have I convinced myself are true about me? And those three questions are good because it will help you to identify the source of your brokenness. And then it helps you identify the why, or like the what. Like, where does it come from? And the why is like, so why is it here? Right? Why is it here? What am I trying to protect or avoid? And then it also helps you to recognize some of the things that continue to perpetuate that cycle, right? The lies that you start to believe, right? Well, for me, in my story and my healing, my faith in God, my relationship with Jesus, the Bible, prayer, all of this was crucial to my healing. And so my story has involved my faith. And here's what I've learned. Healing isn't about becoming the person you used to be. Right? It's not fix me so that I can be who I was. Just, this is broken, fix it so I can continue being the person I was. Healing's not about becoming the person you used to be. It's about becoming whole in a brand new way. It's becoming a better version of yourself. Isaiah 61, 1-3 in the Bible says, "He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives, to comfort all who mourn, to give them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of despair." This is God's promise: to bind your wounds, to free you from cycles of pain, to restore your joy, and to transform your ashes into something beautiful. And it's not just some catchy poetic thing. It's a divine exchange. But healing requires our action as well, right? It requires, if you will, a partnership with God, right? That brings us to these next three steps, right? So step one is choosing healing. Choose healing, right? So one of the mantras, one of the pillars of my story is choose, commit, confront, right? And so when we're talking about healing, we're going to choose healing. You must choose it every single day. Every day, every moment of every day, you have to make that choice, even on the days you don't feel like it. Healing doesn't happen just by osmosis with us doing nothing. It doesn't just happen to us, right? It's something that we have to actively participate in. And that's where our choice comes in, right? So we choose to heal. We choose to stop avoiding the pain and start unpacking it, which leads us to the next step in that. The next part of that is commit, right? So you got to commit to the work. Choose to heal, commit to the work. So for the most part, healing is rarely instant. It's not like, our world, our culture, our generation, like we want instant gratification, right? Healing is not like that. It is a process. It's layered. It takes time, right? There are a lot of things that can go into your healing, right? Talking to someone, like a counselor, they're a coach, whatever. Like, so being vulnerable and transparent with someone, journaling, right? Journaling every morning, right? That could be a very good way to that would contribute to your healing. It could be very therapeutic. For me, it's I recorded over 100 episodes. It's funny, I like to call them the hidden episodes, but I never released them. But that was extremely therapeutic for me. Extremely therapeutic for me because they were raw and vulnerable and transparent, unedited. And it was a way for me to speak everything that was inside, right? Fasting and praying. Like I said, for my journey, my faith has been extremely important to me. It's been crucial in my healing journey. And prayer, my prayer has been a vital role in that. You might join some sort of support group. It could be like a men's group, and I mentioned this on a previous episode, or a women's group. I mentioned this on a previous episode that I've been to hell and back. I went to hell and back by myself. But that doesn't mean that there weren't people that God put in my path along the way. But as far as my healing, my personal healing, man, I did that myself. And it was rough. And as I came out of it, and as I was coming out of it, something that was extremely important for me, and like I said, my faith was very important to me, was a church that I started going to. And I got hooked up with a men's group, and these guys were awesome. And it was awesome to be a part of that community. And so something like that could be very beneficial to doing the work that it takes to heal. Here's a big one, is setting boundaries, right? When you choose to heal and you're committing to do whatever it takes, no matter what, you're committing to your healing, that's going to require setting boundaries. You're going to have to say no to some things and to some people. There are going to be things that you're going to have to cut out of your life, that you're going to have to stop doing or stop pursuing. There are going to be things that you're going to have to replace those things with. These are all boundaries, right? And it starts with where your attention's at and where you're giving your attention to. That's where everything will follow. And so setting these boundaries, these healthy boundaries, not toxic boundaries. And you have to remember, pain that is not transformed will be transmitted. Okay, keep that in mind. Pain that is not transformed will be transmitted. Okay, so that pain that you're experiencing has to be transformed. And that's the healing process, right? Or else you're going to walk in your brokenness, you're going to live in your pain, and you're going to transmit that, right? But we want to walk in our healing, and we want to walk in this new version of ourselves, in this healed and healthy life. Okay, and that leads us to the third step, or the third word in that little mantra. So we choose, we commit, and then we confront, right? So we're choosing healing, we're committing to the work, and then we're going to confront the roots. We're going to confront the root cause, right? The source, right? There's a lot of things that we do that we put a Band-Aid on, Band-Aid solutions, and it covers it up and it distracts from it, but it never heals it. It never cures it. It never really gets to the underlying issue. and you've got to get to the roots. You can't always just deal with the symptoms. You got to get to the root. Here's what I did. I asked God, I had to ask God, and I asked God to reveal these things to me, right? And some very specific things were about myself, and I had to ask God to reveal the lies that I was believing in my brokenness. And then I had to ask God, I had to have faith, and I had to figure out how to replace them with truth. And so as I was asking God, reveal to me, like, what are the lies I'm believing about myself? And I started to think of some, like what I started to think about myself, and I started to say them out loud, and I started to name them to God and pray them to God and asking him to reveal all of the lies that I started to believe about myself while in my brokenness. And I started to replace them with truth. Like, for example, I'm not enough. I'm not enough, right? I'm not good enough. Becomes, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm made in the image of God. Right? Another one, like, I'll always be alone. That was something, right? Um, I'll always be alone becomes, God sets the lonely in families. And some of these verses, I mean, yes, there is context for these verses and things, but these are examples of taking the lie and replacing them with truth. And so I thought for a long time that that I wasn't good enough, that I would always be alone, and I had to start to replace these things with truths, right? And I had to understand that there's a difference between being lonely and being alone. But I will always be alone became, God will never leave me or forsake me. And I started to recognize the community of people that I had around me. And you start to replace these lies with truths, like, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. But then I see that there's nothing that I need to do for God to love me. There's nothing I can do to earn his love. He loves me because he loves me. And nothing can ever remove me from his hand. Nothing could take his love from me. And so you start to replace these lies with truths. And here's what happens. Here's the beautiful thing. Healing comes when truth replaces lies. Healing comes when truth replaces lies. And so you have to choose it every single day. You have to commit to it every single day, and then you have to confront it. And so here are some things that helped me. Okay. Here are some things that helped me along my journey, right? I decided that I was going to commit my life to God. I was already a Christian, but I mean, I was going to surrender my life to God. And so for me, that looked like every morning getting up and reading the Bible and praying. Now, I journal from time to time. It's not a regular practice for me, but like this podcast is, and I do write from time to time, but reading and praying has been very good for me. Right? And so here's a question that if you wanted to think about or write down or whatever, here's a question that you can prompt you to start to experience or to start to investigate your healing. Where am I still bleeding from an old wound? Think about that. A lot of times we live from our wounds, right? We behave out of our woundedness. And so you start identifying these things. Where am I still bleeding from an old wound? And then you can tackle that, right? And one scripture, Jeremiah 30:17 says, "But I will restore you to health and heal your wounds, declares the Lord." Another question would be like, and here's something to think about, because this is what you have to confront. You have to think about this, is what would healing look like for me? And what scares me about it? You don't want to be broken anymore. You want to be healed. But maybe you don't even know what that looks like. So you start to think, what would healing look like for me? And go through your life. And in these areas where you feel is marked by brokenness, so what would healing look like for me in this? And if that's the case, and I know I want to be healed, I don't want to be broken, what scares me about it? What's scary about it? What am I afraid of? Right? If faith is something that you lean on or that you want to lean on, I did. A simple prayer, something like, God, I'm broken, but I believe you're near. Help me to stop hiding my wounds and start handing them to you. Replace my fear with faith. Show me the truth beneath the pain. Heal me from the inside out. Right? It's a simple little prayer, but it's being vulnerable, transparent, and it's inviting God. It's relying on your faith to reach into these broken parts of us and start to heal. So don't let this become something that's in one ear and out the other. Right? If we want to heal in our personal life, if we want to heal in our relationships, we can't rush past this. We got to sit with it. Right? We have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. We have to get into our broken parts, into our brokenness. And we have to let these things move us toward healing. Remember, God's not afraid of your brokenness. You're not too far gone. You're not too broken or too messed up. You don't have to have it all together. You just have to be willing to be honest about where it hurts. You have to be willing to be open and vulnerable and transparent and honest, truly honest about your brokenness. If anything in this episode resonated with you, connect with me. Email me, unfeignedpodcast@gmail.com, unfeignedpodcast@gmail.com. Send me a message on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Go to my website and connect with me that way. But if it resonated with you, if anything, connect with me. If you want more, if you want to dive deeper, if you have questions, if you want me to clarify anything that I've said, then please connect with me. I've been to hell, but I've also come back. So I've been on both sides, and I can only tell my story. I can only share my story. I can share what worked for me. I can share how I've gone from brokenness to healing. And I believe with all my heart, with everything that's in me, I believe that I can help you do the same thing in your personal life and in your relationships. So y'all connect with me, email me, hit me up on the social media platforms, go to my website. And again, if you have questions that you want to hear discussed on an episode, or you want advice or whatever it is that you want me to dive into, go to my website, submit that live Q&A form. And the last Friday of every month, we're going to tackle those things. Y'all, again, I appreciate y'all so much. I'm so thankful and grateful. I can't even say it enough. Like, words don't even describe how thankful and grateful I am for y'all. I think it's awesome that you listen to this podcast. What I think is even more awesome is that we can grow together, that we can heal together, that we can continue this journey of healing together, that you would even be willing to allow me to walk with you on it, on this journey, and help you in any way I can and connect with me. And I think it's amazing. I'm so thankful for y'all. And until next time, we'll see you then.